Again, I just want to reiterate to everyone who's watching that this is a conversation, and that includes you. So if you're watching today, we do want your questions. So if you're watching on Zoom, please type in your questions in the Q&A balloon at the bottom of your screen. If you're watching on Facebook, type your question in the chat. Quick announcement on Saturday, December 19th, we're going to end the year with a special Saturday matinee reading of the play Interviewing Miss Davis, starring the fabulous Karen Kandasian as Betty Davis. That's right, Karen Kandasian as Betty Davis. If you know Karen and love Karen, as we all do, you don't want to miss this. This will be a tremendous amount of fun. It also co-stars Wong Jung Kim and Alicia Force. So you don't want to miss this. Saturday, December 19th at 5 p.m. Pacific time. That'll be on our live on Facebook and Twitter and our Fountain stream as well. So as you may know, the Fountain Theater, in association with Tell Me a Story Productions, has been streaming the 12-episode digital series, The Gaze, on our Fountain Stream webpage. And The Gaze is a funny and bold story of a young queer Black actor navigating his way through a very white theater festival. And we are presenting new episodes every Friday, and you have to see it. It is just so well done, and it's funny and thought-provoking and just so timely and urgent to our times. My guest today is the creator and writer of The Gaze. He is a writer, an actor, and a producer. And as an actor, he has originated the roles in new plays in New York and in theaters all across the country. Locally, here in Los Angeles, you may have seen him at the Mark Taper Forum in Susan Laurie Parks's play When Father Comes Home from the Wars, or maybe at the Geffen in The Legend of Georgia McBride at the Geffen Playhouse. He was also an assistant director to Felicia Rashad on CTG's production of Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. He's a two-time Ovation Award nominee, a three-time NAACP Theater Award nominee, and a two-time LA Drama Critics Circle Award winner. Wow. He is also a core playwright at the Lark Play Development Center. So it is my pleasure to welcome Larry Powell. Larry? There you are. It worked. Yay. Hey man, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I get so giddy when people, say all my decorations. I'm like, oh my God, I do all that stuff. I forget.
Oh my God, did I really do all that? Oh my God. I know. Well, it's great to have you here. And I really mean it that I really have been looking forward to chatting with you. The Gaze is just a wonderful piece of work. And just from the conversations that we've had and on the phone and getting a sense of the kind of work that you do and the kind of artist that you are, makes me just very eager to share some words with you and some thoughts and feelings. So it's great to have you here. Thanks for taking the time to be here.
Thank you.
So here we are. It's the end of 2020. Thank God.
Hallelujah.
I know what a year, and I don't have to tell you what a devastating year this has been for everyone, for this country, and it's been such a year of economic and professional catastrophe, racial upheaval, and of course the health crisis and personal isolation. So that's my dog in the background, by the way.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm here at my house, which I was going to say. Speaking of isolation, so I wanted to ask you, um, with all of this happening in this year, the and having time to kind of hunker down when you've had the time to do that, what have you learned new about yourself, either as an artist or as a human being, having this alone time, or even being busy in this time of isolation? Have you learned anything new and important about yourself, the kind of work you want to do, or what's important, or you as a human being?
You know what's interesting is it all sort of comes together for me. And in this moment, I the gaze is really about the exodus of centralizing the white gaze on my life and in my life, in my work, and me really leaving that place. And then I went on to write a piece for the Greenway Court Theater called "The Reclamation of My Black Ass Imagination,"
Right.
about me reclaiming this imagination, this source imagination, right? This way of seeing myself and being with myself that was only with myself and the God of my own understanding. And so now I find myself in this space where I am learning again, relearning and reacquainting myself with that core initial point of expression and exploration. And how that has manifested for me spiritually is it has given me more honest connection with source. And then I think creatively, it has given me the understanding that I really honestly only want to be in spaces where I can be 1,000% myself. I only want to have conversations where I feel like I can say and do whatever I want to do as long as it's not hurting someone
Mhm.
or it's not, out of pocket, but I can really show up as my full self and really share my own thoughts. And that has been sort of a revolutionary way of being with myself. I mean, like I have always been kind of real and like, like I'm gonna say what I want, do what I
Right.
but in this new way of that, it is urgent that I share something about humanity that I always tend to see, which is that we always find something to push towards. We always find something to fight for, to hope for, to dream forward towards. Like, really, I literally experience humanity doing that. And so I just find it very, very important for me to be in a space where I can continue to share that love.
And do you feel like this transformation that has happened for you, that it happened through the course of this year?
Hmm.
So talk to me about the Larry before, about uh, being under the gaze, and or what was the world like for you then? One can look at your resume and say, boy, he did all this great work and he was doing this and he's working with these wonderful artists and um, uh, on a trajectory, you know? Talk to me about the before the after.
Well, so I'm from South Central LA, born and raised, 4 generations. Love being from LA. I'm in Leimert Park right now. I love being from the Crenshaw area, Crenshaw district, you know. And I had the opportunity, thanks to my amazing mom and my family that supported her, to go to a school called the Oakwood School in North Hollywood.
Yes.
And so that moment of going to Oakwood turned my life inside out. So whereas before I had only known like, like four or like a handful of white folks, I went from that experience to being one of two black boys in my entire class from 7th to 12th grade.
So
And
before you go on, tell me, how did that happen? How did you travel from South Central to Oakwood? I mean, that's a story unto itself. There's a play right there.
yeah, what's crazy about it is, so Oakwood, when the riots happened and all that kind of stuff, in the way that these institutions are sort of finding ways to reach out and to prove themselves to be anti-racist and all these kinds of things. Like I think in that moment, Oakwood always has a heart to be liberal, a heart to reach out and be of one voice and all that kind of stuff. Even with
Uh-huh.
everyone has their issues institutionally, but it's like Oakwood, I think in that moment was reaching out to diversify their school,
Uh-huh.
and my mom was one of the parents that was like, I have a kid who they're trying to skip 2 grades in public school in the LAUSD school, system and district or whatever, and I'm going to give him this opportunity to go to this school that can be challenging for him and to give him a better chance at an education or all these kinds of things. And so I went, I tested, I got in. They gave me a scholarship, and the way we got there, I went there with so many amazing young minds. But the way that we got there, those of us who live the south of the 10 and and then these other
Right.
neighborhoods,
Right.
is the mothers. But this happened before I went there, but the mothers, the black mothers, got together and chartered a bus, a small bus, for us to be able to be transported
Wow.
from the hood to the valley.
Oh my God.
And so imagine like of all of us like mastermind, that's what I call us, mastermind people who coming off this bus, this short bus, right?
Mhm.
And just getting off right there on Magnolia. It will park right in front of the school,
Right.
right on the 170, right into that like that overpass or whatever. And
Mhm.
we come down and we would get off the bus. Me, Zosha Rockmore, Grace Nix. But there's so many incredible people who also went to Oakwood. And it's like we really were getting off the bus, and so there was this experience of like being shipped right
Yeah.
to this very, very, very affluent situation.
Right.
When you after school is done and you go back to a not
Right.
so affluent situation,
That's right.
I really wrote a paper. I remember when I was I think a senior at Oakwood, or maybe I've been a junior, but I wrote this piece about existing in the hiatus. Like because there was a real experience once you go to that school and you're introduced to all these things and all these ways of speaking. You're just a kid and you're growing up, right? And it's sort of like you go back to where you're from and you're being called, you're not black enough there, and then
Mhm.
you go to Oakwood and then you're not white enough there. You're not rich and white enough here. You're not poor and black enough here. So where do you exist? And I wrote this piece where I was finding a way, even through the exploration and understanding of my queerness, of existing in this gap, in this 45 to sometimes an hour and a half, bus ride to and from Oakwood School. And it was a profound experience, and I am understanding now that it was the beginning of where I am now. This understanding of where I was, I had to understand where I was in order to leave where I was. And so it's interesting from there to go on to Carnegie Mellon, where that sort of continued, right? Because I never was not talking about it. Even at Oakwood School, I was the president of the Cultural Awareness Committee. And we went to these seminars nationally. And we had these breakout groups with all these other kids who were also at these private schools and all kids of color or black kids or whatever. and we sat in circles, and we had focus groups and discussion groups, and we did exercises, and we were the leaders of thought in that way. And so I've always been talking about this. Then I went to Carnegie Mellon. I was talking about it there, writing shows, learning how to write shows, and speak up there in that space about it. So it's actually not a surprise that for me to make my first 12 episode new media series with my dear childhood friend Angelica Robinson,
Yeah.
who's the owner and amazing producer behind Tell Me a Story Productions. Like, I never, it's not a surprise that it's about, taking this exodus from this space, like coming out of this space where that experience is so central. But I'm so thankful that I was able to have those experiences, because it's not a new conversation for me. So therefore I was able to key in, it's not a new conversation for any of us. And so it was beautiful to be able to put the pieces together, in a narrative way, to be able to explore and express the things that I've picked up and things that I was done with.
Where did the passion for theater come from? Were your parents artistic, or did you go to a play when you were a kid and saw a performance and said, I want to do that? Or was there some magical moment, or a teacher maybe who turned you on to the art form?
You know what's so crazy? I literally think it was church. I really believe, when I was born, my dad was a minister. My grandfather's, my great grandfather is one of a huge great pastor in LA. The late great Reverend Eugene Thomas, and my uncle's a pastor, and my whole family is it's very, to me, theatrical.
Yeah.
I think also in a beautiful way, like the way my granny can write things, and I'm talking
Mhm.
about the way she goes up to everybody's funerals and will read an obituary is a master class in monologue reading.
Well, I've always thought that theater and the church are very interchangeable. They both have music and costumes and spectacle, and you go to both, to each, to be told a story about what it means to be a human being. And we all gather together in the shared space and have this period of communion together, and then we are excused to go off into our community and take what we've learned with us and somehow make the world a better place. So I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that.
Was theater. I mean, doing skits, and my godmom Darlene, she would tape us, doing little skits with figurines and encourage us that way. And then I always had this thing for writing, like literally, like I would always just like write my version of The Little Mermaid or Ants. And like sometimes we didn't have paper when I was with my dad, staying with my dad, and I would like take one of his carpentry pencils and write on the backs of brown paper grocery bags, like from Ralph's or whatever. And like literally, because I had to write something, that's what I did. There was no computer. There was no, and so there I wrote, and no one taught me how to do it. I just like was like, oh, then they say that line there, and they say that line. I don't know what. So something was always working through me, and that's it can't be divorced from spirituality either, though. It can't be divorced from that. So then when I went to Oakwood, though, and I in seventh grade, I was in the drama school, because drama class, because it was clear that I wanted to do that, and like not go to basketball class. But I did try out. I was on them teams too, though. I did like.
Yeah.
I was always kind of active, but I Lee Lavery. I don't know if you know Lee. Did you ever
That
know?
name sounds familiar, Lee Lavery.
Did some theater. I mean, he was doing theater. I learned later, in like Burbank and all this kind of stuff. But for me, like as a 12-year-old, like at Oakwood School, like you could call your teacher by the first name there. You don't have to wear uniforms, and you got free periods, of free 40
Uh-huh.
periods. Like I was like, wow, where am I? And so I remember there was this exercise or this assignment that Lee had us do at the beginning, and he was like, go and find a monologue. And I did not know what that meant. Like, I didn't even
Didn't
know.
know what a monologue was.
No, I didn't know how to do that. But they, Oakwood has their own library. And so I went into the library and I sat there And I mean, I went to some books and I just, I remember like looking at things, but I was like, I don't know what to choose. Like, I don't know. I don't see anything that interests me. I think I found like, a collection of monologues. And I was like reading through them. I was like, I don't know. And I went to class and I didn't find one. And so when it came time for me to give my monologue, he was like, Larry, where's your monologue? And I was like, I don't have it. He was like, okay, stay after class. But that day was also this assembly. It was the Black History Month assembly.
Mhm.
And this assembly, you go across the street into the parish hall, this auditorium, basically this a community room space at the church that now Oakwood owns across from this.
Across the street. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
And so all the kids and all the students and the teachers, school stops and you go to this town hall event and there's a microphone in the middle of the space and you can go up and share. And we had that weekly. This is amazing stuff. I mean, Oakwood is also, it's an amazing school. And so we go there and we have this space that's carved out weekly for you to be able to share. But this one was about, Black History Month. And so I knew that was coming, so it was lunch period and all this stuff was happening. And Lee had me stay after class, and he went into his office, and then he came back out, and then he threw this book in my chest. And I was like, okay. And I actually have it right here. I'm just gonna go get it. I'm gonna show you how close it is. He
Mhm.
threw this book into my chest, and it was a Raisin in the
Raised
Sun.
in the sun. Yeah.
Right? And he was like, go to this page. And I was like, okay. And then he was like, read Walter Lee. And I'm like, okay. And I just started reading, don't cry, mama, understand that man's gonna walk into this door able to write checks for more money than we've ever had. It's important to him, and I'm gonna help him. I'm gonna put on the show. I didn't make this road, it was given to me this way. Hell yes, I want me a yacht someday. Yes. I want to hang some pearls around my I just started reading it like that.
Hmm.
And then he was like, okay, great. Now we're gonna go across the street and you're gonna read it in front of the entire school. And I was like, what?
Huh?
And I was like, okay. And we did it. And I did it. And I'll never forget this other student was on the bus with us, Leah LaCour, beautiful. She was like the star of one of the shows and everything. And she wasn't there, but when we were on the bus ride home, she had missed the assembly, but she said, I heard you did a monologue. I heard you got some chops. And I'll never forget that feeling I got. This beautiful woman telling me that. I don't even like girls like that right now.
That's right.
But at that point, I didn't know what was going on. I just know she was incredible and that I felt heard and that I felt seen. And I
Yeah.
guess I felt a little bit like how, my uncles and my great grandfather and my grandfathers and my dad and all them were when they were on the pulpit and they were ministering to the people.
Mm.
And I think I linked something to to that. And then I just went on to Amazing Grace Conservatory with Wendy Raquel Robinson and was able to do musicals with my people that looked like me. And I was at Oakwood doing musicals with people who didn't. And so I'm just saying that there was always this way of existing in the middle, being some sort of medium, some sort of highway for
Mm.
ideas and energies and stories to pass through. And it's just important to me now that I'm able to be that highway without somebody feeling like they have ownership over me or they have control over me because I discovered it in such a free space.
Is that what compelled you to start the Powell Academy or the Freedom Workshop? Was to create a safe space for this kind of work to happen?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was. I think since I was younger, I mentioned Amazing Grace Conservatory. That's actually where
Right.
I met Angelica Robinson and Wendy Raquel Robinson went to middle school with my mom. They actually were bussed out to like, other schools in the valleys, from the same neighborhoods. And I was always the one that wanted to help my peers. I wanted, I I came to the understanding of, how to do certain things quicker, and I wanted us all to understand it. And then when I went to Carnegie Mellon, I had classes, when you can make up little courses and stuff like that, or peer courses.
Mhm.
I wanted to help the younger students, and then throughout my career, I wanted to provide an opportunity for there to be a pipeline from artists who were out there doing it, the artists who wanted to be out there doing it, who will be out there doing it. It's just very important for me, to me, for us to always have a sort of resource center. So that's what the Freedom Workshop really is. I see a lot of brilliant Black minds and talents, actors, not having certain facilities in place, or spaces where we could really exercise in ways that are really, really, beneficial or quality. And so I'm just always interested in sharing everything I know. And it's not just about me, it's getting all the homies, everybody, all the masterclass teachers, like getting all of them in the room, and so that they can understand, what other people are able to understand in more privileged settings, basically.
And is the Freedom Workshop continuing even during this COVID period? Are you doing it on Zoom or something? Or
Yes. So I did the Freedom Workshop. I founded it earlier this year before COVID, and we had an amazing pilot session. It was over a course of a couple of weekends, and we had a culminating show called Freedom Night, where I wrote this one act play called Freedom Crown for the 12 participants that were in the Freedom Workshop. It was important to me that I was able to crowd fund scholarships for all of them, to be able to make it free for them, because I think that also happens a lot for us writers. We are able to go to these writing retreats, and we get stipends a lot of the time just to sit and exercise and work on our craft. And this is a trade that we do too. I think a lot of people miss that. You know what I mean? And I think that, why can't that happen for us actors? And so that was important to me to work towards that. And so thankfully, all of our supporters made that possible. And then I also received assistance from the LA County, a grant from LA County to help make that possible. And then I didn't want to abandon that ship, but I also didn't know what it was going to be. So I ended up calling it something else for the summer. I offered a 12-week storytelling immersion program, but I called it the Powell Academy of Performing Arts, because I was like, is this the Freedom Workshop? But it turns out it was just the Freedom Workshop, like pivoting. I just called it something else for a second.
right.
So now we're back with the Freedom Workshop, and I'm really excited about the future of that.
And if someone wants to get involved or hook up with you in the Freedom Workshop, how do they do that?
You can just email me right now. You can email me. We're in the middle of making our website amazing and dope.
Uh,
You can definitely email me at powelloflove@gmail.com. The Los Angeles Theater Center, Latino Theater Company at the LATC are
mhm.
our fiscal sponsors, so you can, donate to us and have that tax write-off. But things are being put in place right now. But for now, you can reach out to me individually.
Cool. Maybe we can put up some information on that in the
I
chat
appreciate
as
that.
well. We have a message here from your friend Jim Nicola.
Oh my God.
Oh, he says, Larry, you speak so movingly of being in the middle, not one or the other. But what it sounds like to me is that you are not the outsider, but a very special spirit that is able to truly be more than one spirit. You are many in one. Isn't that lovely? That's so lovely. And Herb Isaacs is saying hello.
Thank you, Jim. Hi, Herb.
Herb, he says you're blowing me away. You have to talk about a lot of stuff. So again, anyone who has a question or a comment, just type it away in the chat or in the Q&A balloon. If you have a question for Larry about anything, please enter it. Oh, and we just put up your email address, Powell of Love, in the chat. So anybody who wants to reach you can. So let's talk about the gays, which, as I said, is now currently streaming on Fountain Stream. We've been dropping episodes every Friday in groups of 3. So if you haven't seen it, please go to our page and check it out. It's just wonderful. It's really, really good, great stuff. So the gays began, if I understand correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, that it began first as a stage play, a cycle of plays that you wrote to be performed live on stage, correct? And then, as I understand it, then COVID hit, and you decided it was that you're going to turn this catastrophe into a positive vehicle to, that the story had to be told. And so you transformed it into a digital series, which is like crazy. I mean, who does that? And in the middle of a pandemic, when everybody's out, no one's working, and all the facilities are shut down, and all the money's gone, and everybody's freaking out. Well, I'll let you tell this story, because it really is an amazing thing. Talking about willing something into being, And I was reading an interview that you had done, and I love the phrase you said that you would make it happen, that you were compelled to make it happen, and it seemed to be coming from this place. So just briefly, tell us the story of how the gays came to be what it is now.
Yeah, I wrote The Gays. I started The Gays last year, top of last year, 2019, in the inaugural Lark Play Development LA Writers Retreat. John, artistic director of the Lark Play Development Center, said, write the play that scares you the most. And I had experienced a series of microaggressions and just like experiences I don't really care for reliving, but I was just tired of being in this space, giving my blood, sweat, and tears, about my Black experience in these plays for an audience that didn't look like me. And then having to be so vulnerable to these audience members who are well-meaning, or these all these other people, are well-meaning but didn't say the wrong things, and just don't understand their privilege or this and that. And so, like, everything everyone's talking about right now. So I just got tired. I was suffocating, and I was like, I don't even know who I'm writing a play for. I don't even know what's happening. And so I just started to pour all of those feelings out into the page. And Jerome, the protagonist of The Gays, started off in this theater, in the audience of this theater, talking to this other Black actor, Kendrell Thompson, about this housing situation. I mean, the year before that, I was out in Chautauqua, and there was this whole I got pulled over sort of thing that happened in Chautauqua, which ended up being a very beautiful experience, but it was a very painful experience as well. So when I say I had experiences, I really mean that, you know what I mean? Being stopped and frisked on the way to rehearsal, and then dealing with it inside the rehearsal room. And it's like all these kinds of things were just like, literally my body couldn't take it anymore. So then all of a sudden, Jerome was talking about all of that. And I said, oh, here's a container in which I can sort of work some of this shit out. And so I took those pages to that writer's retreat that day. Devere Rogers, who plays Sean Corey in the series, was one of the actors there, along with Joanna Strapp. And Joanna Strapp, who is an incredible...
I love Joanna, yeah.
And directed the Welcome to Evergreen episode. And is a dear friend of mine. She was the other actor, and they were reading, and I knew I was safe in their arms. I was safe in the arms of my fellow writers in that room, and I continued to write it. So at the end of that writer's retreat, I had pretty much the bulk of the first play, because it came out as a cycle of plays. First came out as 3 plays. And so I then went on to crowdfund and do a 29-hour workshop of that play at Greenway Court Theater, thanks to Tiffany Moon allowing, and Pearson allowing, and Whitney allowing for that space to be had there. And Angelica Robinson was a stage manager. My friend Jalen Levinson came out to direct it, and I had an amazing cast. And I had a 4.5 hour reading of all three plays, and my sister made some food, and we
Uh-huh.
audience and all that kind of stuff. And I discovered, what I wanted to do with that play. I discovered that I didn't want to, release it as a whole big long theatrical event. Actually, I love that Jim is here because New York Theater Workshop was a space in which, because of my friend Infanisa's plays were done. I was like, oh, I could write, a cycle of plays, and there would be some space for it somewhere in this country. And but I realized that I don't want to show them all at once, and so I focused on the first play, and I submitted it to the O'Neill
Hmm.
National Play Conference, and it's a finalist now. And
Right.
so it became a finalist. And I got news of that this year. So that I got news of that as COVID was happening. And then, all my friends and community members were speaking up about the systemic issues in theater. We
Uh-huh.
knew what's
Right.
happening.
Right.
All types of initiatives were springing up in ways in which my beautiful community was speaking out and speaking up. And I was like, and then Griffin Matthews released his video, the Burn It Down, and I'm like, okay, I have a play that is literally about everything that's happening right now. I need to not wait like I have been doing for the past 5+ years for someone to produce my play. Because I have all these plays that have been developed and have been all these readings and all these workshops and all these things. And I've never just done a production, which I could have done now I know years ago, but I was wanting it to be done within the system.
Right.
So I was like, I cannot be at that place now. And I was just continuing to contemplate that. And I knew the gaze happened. And then all of a sudden I was a finalist at the O'Neill as I was thinking this. So now I was like, oh my God, that's dope. And then so I was like, they were like, but everything is, we're in a holding period kind of a thing. And my play wasn't selected as one of the plays to be worked on digitally this year, but I'm still a finalist for next year. And so I was like, I'm not gonna wait. I'm not gonna wait. And I called up Angelica and I said, I do not know how to do this, but I literally think I want to adapt the play, The Gaze, into an episodic series digitally. And she was like, okay,
All right.
let's do it. Because that's how fierce Angelica is. And
Absolutely.
and then I had a team of actors who had already worked on it, and other people that I called because there were some people that I wanted to do it who weren't in LA when we did it last year, but now we're going to do it in this digital way. So now the opportunities opened up, and we did this 100% remote thing. That ended up being thegayseries.com. You can go there and watch the episodes now, but that was an incredible undertaking.
Oh, thank God. Yeah. Hugely ambitious. And one of the many things that impresses me so much about it is the quality of it. It's very high quality. The acting and the direction and the editing and the way it looks, and I mean, we've all seen a million Zoom readings and Zoom theater and all of that, and this is not that. This is
No, it's a hybrid. It's a hybrid. You know what I mean? And for me, that's the word I brought to Angelica actually, and I've been saying, I was like, I did this with another one of my plays. My play Titty Boy, I adapted into a film called Mother's Milk, and I had a thing, and so I had already this way about like not waiting and wanting
Mhm.
like my little brothers to be able to see it who weren't in New York and couldn't come to the reading. You know what I mean? And so I was already thinking like, how do we get these stories to them? I was recording my play Lost Dog at LATC. I had an audio recording of that. Like I was already doing all these things that people are doing now because I wanted to get my work out there. Right. And so this moment to me was sort of like, just like the tipping point is
Mhm.
was. And so for me, it's exciting to me that people keep saying that, like, oh, it's not like the Zoom theater that we've been seeing, this and that, because I think that we are pushing the form with the gays. Like, we
Yeah.
literally were talking about this in April, in May. We were shooting this in June, right? And we started to release it in August. Like, people need to understand what really
Unbelievable.
happened. Like, and it is. It's not like, I had writers in the writer's room and we did it. Like,
Right.
this is the play that I adapted along with Jalen Levinson as my amazing director, dramaturg, mind, and Devere Rogers, who's also my everything and my partner in my writing, all that kind of stuff. And we really got it down to each scene being an episode. And I do think that this is sort of a way that we can explore our works, in this medium as we
Mhm.
continue to reach forward what else theater can be and how you can create an event around that. That was interesting to me in the putting it out that could feel like theater. There are some live things that you can do around a well packaged theatrical and also cinematic asset.
It's also, I think, a matter of the time was now. That had to be done now. And sometimes a project just needs to be born, and there's the urgency of now that can be in around a piece. It reminds me of when we at the Fountain Theater we did Robert Schenken's play about immigration called Building the Wall, and I already had the season all planned out and everything was in place. And Robert sent me his play, and it was about Trump building the wall and all that. And it was in the middle of all that shit. And I just threw out the first play that I had scheduled and said, we have to do this now. We have to do it now. And it's that kind of urgency that it takes on a life of itself, and that's when that you're on the right path, I think, you know. Tell the gays. It's called the gays. Tell what I mean. I know, but for those who may not know, talk about the gays. What is the gays?
This piece is literally about the decentralization of the white gaze and the black imagination and the black creativity, and the experience of a black queer actor and also a playwright, as they negotiate and explore and break away from uh, making white always right in their work and in their collaborative process. And it's not, it's really about the gaze. I would say that the white gaze, like
White
right,
gays.
male gaze, but it's also really about the black queer experience for me because because that's my lens as I've gone through this. So it's sort of a play on word, like the gaze,
Mhm.
so it's like the gaze and then the gaze. Yeah, but it really is about the exodus that I keep talking about, like the exodus from that space within. And Jerome's not perfect. I think I want to say that out loud again. Like, this is not like you know, talk about Miranda Cryer, who's the representation or the personification of certain systemic issues. Like, there is a Miranda Cryer and some people of color that I've worked with that I know. You know what I mean? It's very pervasive, right? The effects it has had on our society as a whole. But
There could be a gaze within a community.
yes, yes. But I just had to be in that space that our ancestor and elder Toni Morrison was in, where she said she had
Yeah.
to completely get that off her back. Like I didn't even, and I saw her say that after I wrote The Gaze. I watched her documentary this like last month for the first time.
Yeah.
So like I didn't even know that I was doing that, and I felt so thankful to hear such a great, mind and source of everything. Also have to go through that before she could write her first book. You know.
Mhm. One of the things about the Black Lives Matter movement and the We See White American Theater manifesto that came out that strikes me is exactly what you're talking about too, is that feeling of when you say, I'm stepping out of it. I'm done. I'm tired and I'm done. Um, and I'm going to live my own truth, and I'm not going to try to be part of this system although how does one escape it, really? But what I is this is the feeling of shutting, of just stopping, and of when uh, that that the white community, you're on your own. We're done. Figure it out. It's not our responsibility to make you feel better about yourself, or to make you comfortable in your history, in this country. Uh, that that we are going to tell our stories ourselves, and our voices matter and have value. And there was just this feeling of exactly what you're talking about, of finality, of which I just thought is so important. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Finality, I love that word. Something occurs to me that, like, I'm not the only one with a story like this. I'm not the only one who has gone through this. There's so many of us, and I think about that, when I release my work. I had to get over that, Oh my God, these black artists, these amazing ones I love, they're gonna, like, they may hate it, and they did, that mind, or this person's like, but she didn't. It's like these. It's sort of like the caring too much about, sometimes what, my community might say, or sometimes what the other community might say, and then sometimes what my family may say, and then the enemies, they may say. And it's like there's so much worry. You find yourself spread thin with worry, and then it sort of evaporates after a certain moment. You find yourself like, I'm just too tired to care at this point. What turns me on, what gets me going, and what makes me feel like I really have something to say, which makes me feel like I'm here to really do something, which makes me feel more secure in who I am, which makes me feel like I can really contribute in a way that makes us all be in a better place. It's just, I understand that what I focus on, I bring more of in my life. So when I'm out there in Louisville, Kentucky, when I just got on the plane and went out to Louisville to go with Until Freedom and the other grassroots organizations who are fighting for justice for Breonna Taylor, when I was out there in Louisville, Kentucky for a month, and thankful for my friends at Actors Theater of Louisville and all my friends in Louisville who showed up and to help and support me through that, I knew that I'm focusing on freedom. I'm focusing on freedom. Literally, as I'm, in front, on the front line that day, that direct action that we took, which ended up in our arrest, and I spent that night in jail with all these amazing minds and these leaders on just activism and just humanity. But I'm standing there, and who's linked arm to arm with me as I stand in front of a line of cops, a black cop in front of me, and on my arms are two white people. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, well, I'm not about to cuss this cop out. You do what you want to do. I'm not judging nobody's activism. But for me, I'm like, love, man.
Mm.
I'm like, love, you somebody's son.
Mhm. Yeah.
You may not like your parents. I get it. I'm real too. You may have some issues. You like, yeah, I'm somebody's son. I'm not fucking with them. I'm like, I understand.
Mm.
But you have something that you love. This is about, and so I'm just always trying to reach for the humanity.
Right.
And so I just think that, like, in that way, I move forward. In that way, I reach towards something that matters for me. Like, I love theater people. Like, that's the only thing I really have known since 2000 and whatever. Like, I love us. Like, I love theater people. There is something in me that just beams from within when I see, because there's a vibe we have, there's a smell we have, there's a way we smile, and the way we hold conversation, and the way we talk about the art. And I know that this theater artist that's leading the film industry, like, duh, like, you know what I mean, all the like, most of the theater people, and I know theater is home, theater is sacred. And so I'm also understanding that, you know, as we are clearly discussing the stuff that we needed to discuss for so long and have been discussing for so long, because there's so many initiatives that we have, you know, that I wasn't a part of, but the people before me were a part of, and that I am here because of. And so I know I am adding into a conversation that has already been happening, but I want my part of the conversation to be honestly me, to be just what I feel like I really need to say, and not need for it to be perfect or the best thing to say in this moment or the best way of doing it, but like you said, the spirit of now. Like the spirit of me going along with the universe that likes speed and understands that I have something to say now. And if I have tools, if I have a laptop, if I have a phone, if I have somebody with a camera and I have a voice and someone to write it and someone to say what I wrote, I'm going to say it. I'm going to do it. Because you know what? Tomorrow is not promised, and none of us know the hour or the day. So what are we wasting time for?
Talk to me about creating theater in Los Angeles and about the he laughed. About the Los Angeles theater community, and do some of your East Coast friends say, "What are you doing out? What are you doing out there?" What,
You'll be like, I don't know where Larry is. I'm serious, but I'm New Yorker, LAer. I am both. I am bi-coastal. Okay, but
Right.
I love the LA theater scene. You know, I'm a two-time LA County Arts intern. So, you know, I was an intern twice as I went through college with
Roby.
wonderful nonprofit organizations, right?
Yeah,
Right. First, the New Ivar, you know, with Cherie Lofton was
sure,
my,
I remember that. Yeah,
you know what I mean? And
yeah,
then
sure.
also went to the Roby Theater Company and started my relationship with the Roby Theater Company with Ben Guillory and
Yeah,
learning
yeah.
great mind. And so, like for me, and also like my connections through Oakwood, right? My connections to Jose Luis and Evelina Fernandez, because their daughter's been my best friend since I was 12 at because she
Uh-huh,
Oakwood. And then like, you know, or Shay Wafer because she's Zosha Rockmore's mom who went to Oakwood. You know what I mean? It's like sort of
uh-huh.
this experience where life sort of gave me the connections I needed early on. And I continue to discover that I always had what I wanted, that I always had what I needed. And it is connected to what we're talking about because I want to talk about LA theater. I think something that host Louise said one time on a panel over at KDT at Kirk Douglas Theater. He was saying that LA theater, what we are struggling with, we don't have a narrative yet. A really unified narrative, and like how like New York theater definitely has a narrative, like Chicago theater has a narrative, and I think that LA theater, I think that we are discovering our narrative, and I think it is about this time and how we responded to this time. I think this is a big part of it. I think the way in which we handle these situations and these conversations that are happening, like the
Mhm.
fountain and y'all's 30-year legacy so far, and how we are here, you know, show how you're supporting, amplifying, and showcasing the gaze. That to me is brilliant, and I think it's a very important. It is about the narrative of us coming together right now, utilizing our resources and working together, having Franz Luz Benson as the community engagement, or like, you know, me and Franz Luz, we graduated together at Carnegie Mellon,
I know
like,
she told me, yeah.
right, but it's just like it's to me, it's about all of those things, like, you know, standing in the gap for each other and being there for each other. You know, Safina Brown over at Support Black Theater has now just been launched. You know, that organization, which is literally about that, supporting Black theater, us coming together, doing it together. To me, they always talk about LA is where you can feel alone. It can be isolating, like, you know what I mean? But there is a
That's true with New York, though, too. My God, you know.
right, but I think there's a connectivity in LA theater that it is able to be like a year-round festival if we do it right, and I think that could be really really kind of cool and very inspiring moving forward.
You know, we just have a few minutes left, but I want to pick up on what you just said. Um, in that, you know, coming out of the Black Lives Matter movement and George Floyd and this summer, and all the protests and the marching that was happening, and so many young people and such a mixed crowd that everybody was coming out, everybody in the middle of a pandemic wearing masks. hundreds of thousands all over the world. And then there was this kind of global feeling of, yes, oh, maybe, now is the time. Now the time. Is now the time. And that this feels different. So many of us were saying, this feels different. There's something different about this. Now we're in December. Does it still feel different? Is it still different? How are you feeling?
I feel different. I feel like I've grown. I feel like I've lost a lot of people. I feel like I'm mourning. I feel like I'm going through grief collectively, which is very, 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 very healthy to do.
Hmm.
So I try to understand that, like how people grieve in places in Africa and other places. I feel like that's different. I feel like us being on this Zoom right now and me meeting you and talking to you in this way, I feel like that's different. I feel like, people being, I don't even know who's watching right now or who will watch. To me, that's different, you know? And so I think that there's been a lot of us use that word pivoting, right? There's been a lot of us pivoting successfully or failing publicly, learning, getting up, brushing our shoulders off, and moving on. I feel like a lot of growth has happened. I feel like this year has been profound. I feel like there's a gift in this, and I have truly felt the bottom of it.
Yeah,
it's it's still a gift in it
yeah,
because I'm still here.
yeah. That's the key to sobriety, is hitting bottom. You don't get sober and start your life over until you hit bottom. And maybe that's what we've done this year. I wanted to ask you about the stories you want to tell. What are the stories you want to tell? You mentioned earlier in our conversation about the that every story was about Black trauma. It was, and there are, inside every human being is a every human being contains a multitude, right? Our multitudes of the human experience. And not every Black story is about slavery or about civil rights or about, violence and all of that. Or every gay story isn't about, trauma and, or about, whatever. That we're all human beings, like what you're just saying, like what you just said, that and all that shit is stuff that we've made up anyway. It's all completely delusional anyway, you know. So what are, in the remaining time that we have, what are the stories that you want to tell, or that you look forward or dream about telling, or plan to tell? Any thoughts come to mind?
I love stories, and I like to tell stories about the magnificent and the mundane.
Mm, mm,
That's to me the black magnificent and the black mundane. Like that, there is something about the extraordinary actions we take to get what we want and the flooring reasons why we do the things to get what we want in those moments.
yeah.
That it moves me. And then also to me, it's always humor. Like when we were decorating the tree, like in Inglewood, my mom and dad, and we were all together, we were decorating the tree, and the oldies were playing. All of a sudden, a drive-by happened. We all had to hit the floor. And then I was like, what the? that that moment,
Holy
how
shit.
it speaks to the normalcy of the sort of environment of violence and the obvious reasonings for that with redlining and all the other stuff, right?
Right.
And like the way in which we find joy in those moments, the way in which, because we need to, because we got to, in order to reach towards survival and
Right. Yeah.
going, to not drown under the fear, under the insanity of the moment. Like to me, I love talking about that. I love understanding that and just talking about that, and I'm gonna keep doing that under the gaze of my ancestors. Under the gaze of my ancestors. That's what it's about. There's no questions. I want to make sure I say hi to everybody who's watching.
Anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I mean, you said Herb was here.
Yeah.
And I think I saw Dr. Foster a couple of times go
Oh,
across.
cool.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's been really a pleasure to chat with you, Larry, I love who you are and the essence of who you are and what you're doing. And I just want you to know that you always have a home at the Fountain Theater, that you have a theater home in Los Angeles at the Fountain.
Thank you.
And we're here to support you 100%.
I appreciate that. Likewise, y'all have been a home for so many of my favorite plays and my favorite, playwrights. And
Yeah, I was looking through your body, the work that you've done, and I said, "Oh yeah, we've done that play. We've done that play. So our,
yeah,
our paths have crossed. I think our hearts are in the same place. So that's good.
so
So thank you. Thanks again for the time today. I truly appreciate it. And thank you, James Bennett, for being the wizard behind the console. And thanks to all of you today for joining us on Theater Talk. And remember, on Saturday, December 19th, the final Saturday matinee of the year to close out the year, we're doing the reading of, of this play about Betty Davis with fountain favorite Karen Kandasian. I don't know if you know Karen. Anyway, she's a fabulous actress, and
I,
it's going to be a hoot. So we'll get out of this painful year with a good time. So again, thanks Larry, and thanks to all of you for joining me on Theater Talk. Thanks so much. Bye bye.